I'm always telling these guys, I'm like, it's obviously the most important part of our job is providing safe travel for these passengers. But, the other important part about being a captain on one of these corporate jets is 50% of it, the job is making sure your customer is not getting ripped off.
Totally. Yeah. And there's people looking to rip them off on every corner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a multi-million-dollar machine, it's yeah.
Hello, welcome to the Pro-Pilot Playbook podcast, where we give the tips, tricks, and hacks to become a pilot faster and cheaper. I'm one of the hosts, Mike Martin.
And I'm Sean Ritchie.
Yeah, we're coming at you live today. Well, not live, but live for us, as we're both on the road, killing time on the road. I'm in rainy Chicago, Illinois, and I think Sean is out on the sunny West Coast, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, right here outside of L.A., John Wayne, Orange County Airport here. Yeah, it's a gorgeous day outside.
Yes, you're where it never rains, and it's raining where I'm at. That's great, man. Well, today we got a pretty cool question that came in, and we love handling these questions. It's not a video question. Video questions are our favorite, but this is an email question that turned out pretty good. It's from Samuel Beck, and it's a question mainly about the app ForeFlight. So I'll go ahead and read that to you guys, and we'll see what we can do to answer this question. So it says, "Hey guys, Sam here. I'm about to start my pilot training at ATP in Provo, Utah this summer, and I had a few questions about the aviation world. My question this time is about ForeFlight and how often do you have to use it? Is it just a student pilot thing, or do professional pilots use it for day-to-day operations? Do the airlines use it? Let's see. Along with this tool, are there some other things that pilots do for pre-flight planning, and how does that work? Thank you for the podcast, and I love the information that you guys share. My current job is a delivery driver, so I spend my hours every day mindlessly driving around Salt Lake City, so I really enjoy hearing your podcast. I listen to every episode and use it to keep me motivated before I start school in July. Thank you, Sam." What a great question. Sounds like he's got the right attitude. He's in a good city, Salt Lake City, man. That's a great place. Lots going on there. Lots of corporate aviation jobs there. You got all that skiing people flying for, drive up to the mountains. We get in there quite a bit. This is a great question.
Yeah, I just did 2 trips out there right before the end of ski season. Mike, I think you were out there too.
It's a beautiful place, man.
Yeah, so it's awesome that we love getting these emails. We're getting so many emails to the point where I think we're going to have to hire an office manager to reply to, because some of the questions that come in, they're not necessarily show worthy. They're right. Just a quick, simple question, and then we get bogged down not answering people. So if you're one of those folks, we apologize. We saw the email, most likely saw the email, and we try to get them all together and knock a bunch out at once. But this one was right on the borderline, in my mind, anyway, of whether we just send them a quick reply or we make a show about this, because the show, the whole Pro-Pilot Playbook thing is about, getting people into aviation and, navigating your career, not necessarily navigating an airplane. But I don't know.
One thing to interject on that is too, this email came in. This email came in on March 11th. So we're a little behind. So just think, if you did send us a question, even if it was a video question or whatever, and we haven't published the episode, doesn't mean it's, if you don't see it in the next week or two, right when you see it in, doesn't mean we won't get to it, because we're always looking through everything, looking for good questions.
Right. But I thought, we could answer this and spin it a little bit into what would be applicable for somebody just getting started in training, because this ForeFlight thing, man, this is the most powerful tool ever made for a pilot. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. And the problem is, which goes along with some of the complaints of the older guys that we fly with, and now I'm one of the older guys, saying, "Oh, these, flight training's too easy now. It's following a magenta line, whatever." That's kind of the problem with the ForeFlight. If you were
Right.
using it for your primary training, as a private pilot, if you have an instructor that's just letting you go wild with this app and having it as a crutch, on a cross country or something, that would just be so, I don't know. I'm against that.
We dealt with that, Sean, when we were coming up 25 years ago when we were teaching students and learning. The handheld GPSs were just coming out. And, you could just, they were, terrible graphics compared to these things, but they still worked. You could just put an airport in, jump in your Cessna and navigate straight to it with no skill whatsoever, not looking at anything on the ground. And the problem with that is if that thing fails, you still need to know what things look like on the ground and how to navigate, and also how to calculate your headings and deal with wind and wind compensation, just in case that stuff doesn't work. And also, even in jets, when we use GPS navigation all the time, still, like when you're shooting at visual approach and at night and things like that, you still need visual reference. And if you're constantly staring at a screen all the time, it can make that challenging for some pilots.
Yeah. Yeah. You need, as your primary training, when you're doing those first few cross countries, and you need all that background information of how the stuff works, how ForeFlight would be figuring out this stuff. You need that correlation. After you get your private pilot's license, you start working on your instrument. Yeah, go hog wild on the ForeFlight. But my opinion is, if you're a primary student, it's okay, sure, to know ForeFlight exists, to know this tool is there, but do not even mess with it. Get your computer out, your E6B, your plotter, do it all the longhand, long form way, so you have the correlation of, how it's figuring your fuel burn and your wind correction angle and all that kind of stuff. And as a private pilot, you're not really supposed to be with your head in the cockpit necessarily that much, staring at screens. Your eyes are supposed to be outside the windows, using some pilotage, the IFR, I follow road type of flying,
Right.
You need all that baseline stuff so you can be good at the other stuff. If you skip that, you're never going to be good at all of it. You gotta have that. But the other thing I thought we'd do here, Mike, is to answer your actual question there. As professionals, we use ForeFlight. I use ForeFlight every day, and every day I'm flying. Yeah. So I just flew from Florida to California, and on my 5.5 hours of sitting in an airplane thinking about answering this question, I jotted down some notes here of how I used ForeFlight to come to California from Florida. And like I said, ForeFlight is an all-encompassing app. It does everything. Over the years, we've had different digital tools to file flight plans and stuff like that, but now we'd have another digital tool for looking at weather. Or you'd have a book with FBO listings to find an FBO's phone number or an address or something.
Yes.
You'd have another book with airport stuff in it, the AFD, the Airport Facilities Directory. That told you stuff like runway lengths or types of lighting and the hours of the tower, and after the tower closes, how do you control the lights? All that stuff now is all in ForeFlight. It's all one place. I'll just run through this real quick. When I started planning out this flight to California, the owner calls me and says, "Hey, I need to go to California." I open up ForeFlight and I immediately build out a what they call a flight, which is basically putting in a departure airport and a destination. And I choose my tail number, which is already in there. It knows what kind of jet it is. It knows the performance of that jet, the fuel burns, all that kind of stuff at different altitudes. And then I select my routing, and I can see immediately on that routing what's going to get me there the quickest or save me the most fuel. I can lay it on a map and see what's going to have me avoid the weather that may be in between where I'm going and where I'm starting. And after I figure all that out, and when I say pick the best winds, it'll actually list all the winds there, or all the altitudes with the winds, the time it'll take me to get there at that altitude, and how much fuel I'll burn if I do the flight at that altitude. And I can see all that stuff right next to each other and just select the one I want. And that's so handy. And
Yes.
then I can hit the file button and file that flight plan. You know, that's the initial type of stuff. And then once that's in there, you know, I can start doing other things now. And maybe it's a multi-leg day. Maybe I'm going to more than just one destination. I got to take the airplane here, pick up somebody and take them somewhere else, or maybe there's a couple different drops. So maybe I got some fuel planning I got to do in between these stops, because that's one game we're always playing in these airplanes. Some of the co-pilots I fly with, you know, everybody's always itching to be captain. Got to upgrade. You know, and I'm always telling these guys, I'm like, you know, it's obviously the most important part of our job is providing safe travel for these passengers. But, you know, the other important part about being a captain on one of these corporate jets is 50% of it, the job is making sure your customer is not getting ripped off.
Totally. Yeah. And there's people looking to rip them off on every corner.
Yeah. I mean, a multi-million-dollar machine. So if you just willy-nilly flew around the country landing and buying fuel, and every one of these FBOs has, depending on the size and weight of your airplane, there's different fuel minimums. You can't just pull into a ramp and leave, drop passengers off or whatever, you know, like in the Sovereign, you know, that depending on where you're at, it could be $150 to pull on there and pull off the ramp, or it could be $750. But if you buy fuel, they'll waive that. And so you got to play this game of, and it could be different from one FBO to the other on the same airport, those prices. So ForeFlight shows you most all of that. If it doesn't, the phone number for the FBO's in there, so you can call them and you can get whatever today's deal is, and you can sit here and figure out where you want to stop. Sometimes I won't buy gas because it's a better deal to skip this airport and buy fuel at the next airport. Anyway, ForeFlight makes that part of my job much easier than it used to be, because I can see all the fuel prices. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, the advantage is, for those that don't have the app yet, there's two different versions. The iPad version, which is what you use in the airplane. I mean, just about every single pilot has an iPad, and that's what we use in flight. And then you have a phone version, which you don't always have your iPad with you, but you know, you always have your phone. So, you know, you're at a restaurant or something, and the customer calls you and they want to change where they want to go, or they say, hey, how's the weather looking? You can pull it right up on the phone. So you have all the power of the full desktop software directly in your hand at all times on you. So in this phone, and when it's connected to the internet, you don't even need to have stored data. It has every single approach chart, every weather detail and route chart, all the FBO information. You can pull up the FBO and then call it directly from your phone. It'll just dial the number for you. You have all that in there. Now, when you're flying, people make fun of me, but I have the iPad Pro that's gigantic. So this gives you a lot better view. I mean, you can really zoom in on the weather. You can pull up approach charts. And then, so if you touch anything on here, I'll tell you what it is. So this is, for instance, I touched the Naples airport, and then it'll bring up all the information on the airport. It'll show traffic if you're hooked on the ADS-B, you're on there. So yeah, it's currently 80 degrees, and it has all that weather on there. So the iPad app is great in the plane. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. It'll overlay all your weather in there. And here's the thing: the data if you have these ADSB boxes, I know that's an acronym somebody might not be familiar with, but it's a government service, which is a form of data uplink that the FAA has implemented. And you can buy these boxes. They're battery powered, and you can put them inside your plane. 500 or $1,000, I think. They transmit a signal to your iPad, and then you can get live weather and georeferencing, which means a small airplane will move over your map while you're flying on any airplane. So you could have the most unadvanced airplane in the world, a 1955 biplane, and you buy this box and you bring your iPad there, and you have unbelievable amount of data available to you. All the even these have built-in gyroscopes in them, laser gyros.
Yep.
So you can actually pull up an attitude indicator on your iPad, and if you inadvertently flew into clouds or had total catastrophic electrical failure.
Yeah, like if you're flying through the mountains or something, you could actually have terrain on there. You can see traffic.
Yes.
You can put like let's see. Yeah, you can put
altimeters.
Yeah, instrument. You can basically have like a PFD, like digital display in the airplane in an old Cub or something on your iPad.
An old Cub or something. Or even, if you were in a jet and you had catastrophic electrical failure and, you have digital instruments and all that quit, which is extremely unlikely, but you could pull up your iPad and as another layer of safety and fly the plane. I mean, having all that in your pocket is incredible. And it's also redundant in that if your iPad quit in flight and you were by yourself, you can pull your phone out, and now you have all that additional information. You have access to an approach chart or sectional map or whatever on your phone as a backup. So it really is a staggering tool. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It makes what used to take me forever, it just instantaneously, and it's all super accurate, where I would just kind of guesstimate on some things. Now I got it right down to the pound, like back to that fuel planning thing. I mean, I don't know how well this is. I should probably do like a screenshot, but I can add passengers. I can see my takeoff weight, landing weights, and I can do this by adjusting my fuel. Like when I was talking about not buying fuel at this airport, buying at the next, tanker and fuel around, it makes that whole operation a lot easier. Now I can see if I'm going to be overweight landing at the next airport. And this all works, in a little airplane too, a little Cherokee. If you're trying to put 4 people and full fuel in it, it'll even do I think all the Cessna and Piper products have free runway analysis in there. So it'll tell you if how much runway you're going to use in your little Cherokee with 4 people and full fuel, if it's 100 degrees outside, or it'll, give you a warning. You don't even have enough runway, that kind of thing.
It charts out all the airspace for you, to make sure you don't inadvertently fly into a TFR, which is a temporary flight restriction, or, if you're flying VFR and you fly in a controlled airspace, which would be bad, it prevents that.
Yep. And you're talking about those little boxes, Mike. Those little boxes, besides giving you weather, the other big thing that gives you, those little Century, I see Sporty's has their version of it, the Stratus. And then there's, I think there's Century, and then there's 4 or 5 of them. They all do the same thing, and they're really neat. There's no subscription service. It's just a one-time fee. It's just a transceiver you buy and throw in your dash. But you can see traffic is where I was trying to go with this. You can see other airplanes, transponders. So you kind of got a TCAS thing going on too, traffic collision avoidance system, which is really neat for a little airplane.
To take it to the next level, too, in a private jet, a lot of these aircraft have Wi-Fi. So the business people in the back can, download business information and use email and all that stuff and communicate while they're on. Like Sean was just on a 5.5-hour flight. If you have a bunch of executives back there, they can get a lot done if they have Wi-Fi. It's very expensive. The service is hundreds of thousands of dollars to install in your airplane, and then the subscription fees are, depending on the speed of the equipment that you have, can be outrageous. They can work off data. But one of the luxuries, if the passengers want it, the pilots get it too. So if you have the ForeFlight app open, you don't even need one of those Stratus boxes. You can just log on to the internet in flight and then have every single feature that ForeFlight offers, including instantaneous weather uplink, which is just great.
Right. Yeah, we have Wi-Fi in the jet I came out here with, so I was using ForeFlight en route. There was some major storms over Oklahoma earlier this morning. Huge stuff up in the 50,000 foot range. A lot of it had rotation. I would be shocked. I haven't turned on the TV, but I'm sure there was some tornadoes somewhere. But I was using ForeFlight to navigate around all that, and the whole time, I'm on approach into California here. They gave me the Disney 5 arrival. I pulled up the Jeppesen plate in ForeFlight and was looking at the arrival. The arrival, and then we did an approach into California here. So I pulled up the Jeppesen approach plate, or you can use the government ones too. The Jeppesen cost money. I like the Jeppesen; they look better. The free government charts are on there too, and that's all included. And then after I was on the ground, all my frequencies are on there for the ground control tower, whatever. That's where I get all that stuff.
Right.
Of course, I had the FBO's frequency in there. So I called the FBO on the radio, told them I was 15, 20 minutes out, how many passengers I had. And all that information was in ForeFlight. And then after I got to the hotel, I just went through there. And here's one of the great things about ForeFlight that I switched over to about 5 or 6 years ago. I was reluctant to do it. Finally went to a digital logbook. And that flight that I built out before I left Florida, now I hit one button and it sends it to ForeFlight's digital logbook, which is pound for pound just as good as any of the other digital logbooks you have to pay for. It creates, like if you got a check ride coming up, you can hit the 8710 output and it'll create that's the application you fill out for any airman certification or rating. And it wants to know a bunch of weird times, how much dual single engine do you have? How much, whatever. It's got all these weird blocks, and ForeFlight will fill that out for you. And other stuff too. Currency. I can look and see, am I night current in the Hawker anymore? ForeFlight will tell me based on my logbook entries instantaneously. And you can put other stuff in there, like when your medical is or whatever, went recurrent for this airplane, that airplane, biannual flight reviews. And I forgot the other thing. After I did all this and I figured all this out, I can hit one button and share it with the co-pilot, and boom, now he's got it in his ForeFlight account, and he can see that in his iPhone, or he can go to his iPad, whatever. It's all synced constantly. So it's pretty neat. If I make a change on that flight plan, for some reason I want to change the altitude, it will populate instantaneously in the co-pilot's version. So it's
the other thing
pros use ForeFlight.
Totally. And the other thing they're getting into that's a must if you fly a jet, particularly in the mountains, is they're getting into aircraft performance. And this is major league stuff. I mean, so people refer to it as APG data. APG is a company, is called Aircraft Performance Group, that builds out performance software for jets. But there's several different companies that do it. I think Boeing does it now, and that may be who ForeFlight's paired with. But
Boeing bought ForeFlight, so that's where this is coming from. Go ahead though.
So when you're flying a jet, it's not the same as flying a Cessna 172, and you just put your passengers in and you figure out how long your takeoff roll is, and everything's good. When you get into especially mountain flying, when it can be extremely warm and the air can be very thin, you can be at a high elevation, and you're taking out of an airport, for instance, like Aspen, where there's you're already at 7,000 feet, and then you have to clear very mountainous terrain. And one of the requirements of flying a jet is you need to be able to clear that terrain in the event of an engine failure on one engine. And if you just to make these calculations with just the aircraft manual, is extremely tedious and time consuming. You have to get out oftentimes these chase charts and plug in all this data, and it's very time consuming, and you can also make mistakes doing it that way. So they have aircraft specific software tailored to your plane, where you can put in the amount of passengers, and it'll download all the instantaneous weather conditions, your fuel loads, all that stuff. And then it'll calculate whether you can actually meet the climb gradient and whether it's legal or not for you to take off, or safe for you to take off. So that is a extremely helpful feature that used to take, a long time before pre-flight planning, and it's really increased a margin of safety in flying jets. So this is a great question, and the short answer is absolutely, Samuel, that people are using it every day in the corporate world. I know it's an approved app for many airlines. I'm not sure how extensive they get into it, but airline pilots do use it too.
Yeah, they have some airlines, some carriers have their own stuff they use. I don't know that it's intuitive as ForeFlight or as good as ForeFlight, but some carriers already have their own stuff.
Yes.
Pretty much every airliner has iPads in the cockpit now. But I was boarding, I forget what it was, PSA or one of the regionals or something. And as I was boarding, I looked up through the side cockpit window, and one of the crew members had ForeFlight open on his iPad there. So,
oh, nice.
Some people are using it at the airlines. But but not necessarily
and the other
good for that primary student.
The other part of Sam's question, he's asking what other apps or anything. There's several different things that people use. ForeFlight is kind of choking out a lot of them, but another very popular app and website is called flightplan.com, and that's a free service, and there's advertisements on there, but that's extremely popular for flight planning and filing flight plans. If you're thinking of learning to fly, you can screw around with that website, create a free account. There's a very expensive paid service called AirInc Direct that Rockwell Collins owns. They have actual live dispatchers that you can talk to. They'll help you with your calculations and help you file flight plans. That's more in the professional world, but a lot of big departments use that, and I think maybe airlines, I don't know. And then, there's a lot of miscellaneous airplane apps for. Flight Aware is a very cool app. If you guys don't have that you can download, that will allow you to track flights. And if you're waiting on somebody that's coming in on a plane, you can track them. And one of the coolest features is you can pull up your phone, and if you see an airplane flying above you, it'll georeference your location. You can tap on that plane. It'll tell you where it departed from and where it's headed. It's really, really neat on a clear day, And now these iPhones are waterproof, so you could be floating in your pool and go, "Hey, look at that! Oh, where's that guy going?" It's a real crowd pleaser. My wife loves it. No, just kidding. But I would encourage, if you're going to start your training, and a lot of people are watching this. They're gearing up to start their training. They're just getting into this. I would download this app, ForeFlight, and start familiarizing yourself with it, because it is really cool, and it's definitely going to be something you're going to use throughout your career.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for the question, and thank you everybody for sending in the emails and questions just like that. We look forward to them, and we will see you guys next week. Oh, if you have a question you'd like to send in, you can email us at podcast@ProPilotPlaybook.com.
Awesome. Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. That keeps us motivated, keeps us going. Check out our website. We rolled out a bunch of new products. And, we got
the new stuff.
One of the coolest ones is the live coaching. You can participate in our weekly coaching call that we do once a week with all our members, and you can ask Sean and I live questions on your training and get advice, and also get advice from the other people that are involved in the training. It's really been popular and very fun. So check all that out. We appreciate our viewers, and we'll see you next time.